Greetings, mortals, and welcome back to Europa Universalis.
So today I'm going to be doing the introduction for my quartet achievement run. We're going to be getting for Odin, Humble Origins, Ideas Guy, and First Come First Serve. So we're going to be starting off over here in this 111 province. Now the reason that we're starting off here is to be adjacent to all this territory while simultaneously being on the ocean and having a 111 province. We could also go down to Chortley down here, but I don't think that that's necessarily going to be advantageous for us. I'd like to get into the Aztecs earlier. We can look at the trade map. We're going to be taking control of this Rio Grande trade region. I noticed in my previous runs, where I was just really playing sloppy and didn't have a clear strategy, that the Caribbean is not a great trade node to be your final trade node, because all the trade is going to get sent to either Sevilla or up to England. Like, it's going to be pulled in so many different directions by so many different actors who all have a vested interest in it, that I prefer to not have that be my final node. So what I'm going to be trying this run, and we'll see how this goes, is I'm going to try expanding in the Rio Grande area a lot. I'm going to try to do most of my colonizing here, aside from certain key colonization routes that I need to take. So as an example, I need to take control of enough territory over here to start annexing people. And I need to take control of all of the primary trade nodes as well. But I'm going to try to grow this region and take control of all the territory in the Caribbean, which would allow me to, for instance, if I control all of the land nodes here in the Caribbean, there won't be anybody pulling trade out of Mexico, which means that if I control Mexico and I control the Caribbean territory, nobody can just send ships to Mexico and expect to move it to a place they have actual control. They'd be moving it to the Caribbean, and then from the Caribbean, they would then have to use more ships to try and pull it somewhere else. So what that means is that I can just consolidate my trade and just leave it here in Mexico, Rio Grande, and just gather trade in places that I have full control over, and that's what I'm going to be doing for trade. Now, from an actual strategy standpoint, we're going to be starting out with a republic this time. I think a republic is better because we are Norse. We do have the ability every time we switch rulers to swap over to a different idea, whether it's reducing coring costs or reducing technology costs. Either of those is very powerful, but you want to have them at the correct time. So when we swap rulers, we'll be able to do that. We're starting with the very old ruler. The whole ruler costs mechanic seems to be bugged. Like, it cannot agree on what the rulers cost. Like, this seems to be a ruler that has a negative cost, but at the same time has costs associated. I don't even know. It's weird. So, for whatever reason, the ruler costs what they do. It's some value. We've put the ruler up to age 40, and we're basically going to be using this ruler for the rest of their lifespan. This is a pretty much god tier ruler. They have Scholar to reduce technology costs, and they have Expansionist, which increases Global Settler, which is nice, and they have 666, which is of course nice. But the key is that they have Righteous, and Righteous increases yearly Republican tradition, which means that over a given time period, you're losing less Republican tradition to just continuously using the same ruler all the time. And so you can pretty much go for this ruler's entire lifespan as an old fart already, just because of this. So that should have a big impact. Let's see. I believe it cuts down the rate of decay by 33% overall. So government, we are going to be using East African Tech Group because this tech group appears to effectively be Western. It has different units that aren't as good as the Western units, but in terms of the estates that you start with, or sorry, the institutions, you start out with feudalism. So starting out with feudalism is very convenient. You start out at tech level 3, which is great. So East African Tech Group, for some reason, costs nothing. probably should cost something to start in this region with it, because you have 3 times the tech levels and you have an additional thinger there, but whatever. So we're starting with Norse, of course. Culture is Spartan. If you are doing this run on your own, you should not choose Spartan. You should choose probably English as your culture, because you're going to be needing to take a lot of England and completely cutting out those rebels. Separatist rebels will not spawn if you are of the correct type. So you should probably do that. Anyway, moving right along, we have our traditions and ideas. So we have focused, I'm going to focus down here at the bottom because these are the most important things. So we have diplomatic annexation cost minus 15%. This will stack very nicely with all of the other ones that we get for administrative and influence ideas. Influence ideas has one that's built in, and once you get administrative, you can add a policy that reduces it even further. And since all of these will stack together additively, another 15% is a huge, huge deal. In practice, this 15% is closer to 30%. It's a massive, massive effect. Okay, next we have discipline. Our goal is to not have to take any military ideas. I do have a place during the run that I can conveniently fit in a military idea group if I want to. So for instance, if I'm going to try and take out all of Europe and I feel like my troops aren't quite strong enough at the time to really comfortably go into places like France or to fight a Spain that forms or anything like that, or if I have to deal with the Commonwealth or something like that again, then I can put a military idea in there. But if I have discipline and all these other military things built in, I'll have an easier time not needing to do that at all, which increases my ability to expand faster, maximize my usage of my administrative and diplomatic power, things of that nature, and grow bigger, faster to accrue more of these achievements. So next we have core creation cost. Same concept as diplomatic annexation cost. We're just trying to save our monarch power. So morale of armies, 5%. It's free and it's a really good effect. Artillery combat ability and infantry combat ability, all this stuff is just filler that we're putting in that will enable us to have less emphasis put into our military. So land maintenance modifier, I think this is probably going to be my biggest expense, and because maintenance modifiers like this are not common, I think that it's better than increasing, for instance, tax modifier, because tax modifier will stack additively with other tax modifiers, and that means that you're going to have less impact per one that you add. In addition, maintenance modifiers like this, because they also stack additively and they're shrinking a value instead of raising a value, when they stack additively, that's good for you. So the more reductions that you add, the better, whereas the more additions that you add, the worse they become. So anyway, so land maintenance modifier minus 5% I think is very potent. Yearly army tradition is extremely potent. I had actually considered doing army tradition +1 here and not having the discipline 7.5%. But army tradition is better if you stack a lot of it together. And because I'm not going to be taking any military traditions, if I can avoid it, I decided to just stick with this, get the discipline, because the discipline is harder to get than army tradition, and call it a day. We have yearly inflation reduction because last time I was doing this, I had a huge amount of problems with inflation, and there's really no easy way to deal with inflation mid-run other than to spend administrative power, which you do not want to do. Again, I had initially thought to do either 0.1 or 0.15 here, but at the end of the day, I decided that some of these other effects were more important to spend my points on. Now, finally, we get up to our actual traditions, and this is the first time that we see something that I'm spending more than the baseline cost for something. So I'm actually spending the full double cost for tech costs because this is such an important and useful thing to have. Tech cost minus 5% saves you 30 monarch power per technology that you obtain. Exactly that, because all these modifiers stack in an additive manner. This is huge. Off the bat, we're looking at a massive amount of savings just over the first few techs that you get, and those savings are just going to add up over the course of the run. This is free to get pretty much, just costs 10, and it's just amazingly good. So those are the ideas that we're getting. They are really good. I think that they're going to be very valuable for this run. If I have to, I will adjust them later. If I do have to adjust them, then I'm going to have to remake this video. But for now, I think that's it. So our strategy for the run is going to be somewhat different than it has been in previous times. We're going to be expanding through most of this like really crappy territory in here, trying to annex all these people. But in addition, once we have expanded through and taken all of this, the previous run, we went down here and started going through these. We're not going to be doing that this time because having to go around South America is trouble for our Navy. We don't want to have to do that. It's an extremely long distance to go. So rather than doing that, what we're going to do is we're going to be expanding into North America, and we're going to be expanding into South America the fast way. So we're going to be expanding around here, taking these guys out. For instance, we'll take these guys out, and then we'll be moving, east, taking these guys out. And as we continue across, taking all of these, we will get the ability for our ships to go anywhere in South America, and then we can do it there. We will be taking the exploration idea group first, which means that we'll have 2 colonists pretty much off the bat, and we'll basically have 1 in North America, 1 in South America at any given time. Once we've taken all of the important nodes in North America, we're going to start taking control of the Caribbean and solidifying that. We'll be expanding through here at some point. We'll just have to decide. So that's the colonization strategy, not that important. In terms of the mechanical aspects of the game, I'm going to be trying to vassalize or annex some of the colonizers as fast as possible to get control of their colonial nations. If I can take control of colonial Brazil and have that expanding on its own under me, so for instance, if I vassalize Portugal and they just keep building their colonial nation up while under me, I'd never have to declare war on Portugal to take control of all of this massive territory that they'll be accumulating, while simultaneously that territory is still being created, because I have to take control of every single thing here. Now, the colonial nations, you might say, what, you have to do a 1 tag, so those colonial nations, you can't have them. They can't exist because you have to annex the territory. And that is the case. However, I can release those colonial nations after I have annexed their master, and then just reconquer all that territory. I can just go in and annex them. So that is the basic goal there. So yeah, we're going to be expanding into the Western Europe early, I think, this time. We're going to be trying to take Castile and England at the same time. Those 2 nations we're going to be trying to pick fights with and take this territory as much as we can. Hopefully we'll be able to do that. But the reason that we want to do that is because last time the achievement to get 500 ducats is actually the hardest part of this run. 500 ducats is a lot. We had already gained something like 1,600 development, and our income was less than 150 ducats per month. So the other achievements are trivially easy to obtain compared to that 500 ducats number. And so that's going to be the hardest value to get, and we're going to get it by annexing all of this territory here, as well as large portions of territory over here. Once we have completely locked down one of the trade points around here, that is when we will move our trade port and change our strategy, start sending all of the trade from here to Europe, and then collecting it all in one place. So anyway, that's it for this introductory video. Thank you everyone for watching, and I'm going to get started with the run.